Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and joining me today is Mitchell Metz. Mitchell is the owner of his own company. He is the strategic marketing advisor at Mitchell Metz Marketing. So welcome to the show. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it as well.
So, Vito, first things first, our listeners are always curious about your story. So, everybody gets into this realm of home building. We all have our unique stories, usually not a straight line. So, I'm curious, tell us about your life story. How did you get into the home building industry? And tell us about your company now.
Yeah. So I initially got into marketing kind of through just small businesses in general. I was doing the web design and the technical part of it. And it was back when you could just do keyword stuffing. So if anybody doesn't know what that is, you can just kind of like get a bunch of keywords, like you want to rank for, I don't know, pet pet lodging in Asheville, then you just like write that a whole bunch in your website and you put that in the background as the same color as your background and you just hide it. So that was the good old days when search engine ranking was easy and Facebook ads were cheap. I've always kind of loved small business and traditional business marketing. I feel like small businesses are kind of like the backbone of America. So that's kind of how I got my start. And eventually I came to home builder marketing through Livingstone Design and Build and their family of brands.
Mhm.
I was super grateful to be part of their growth. Last year, they won Custom Home Builder of the Year by the National Association of Home Builders. And I've since launched my company. So it's kind of just felt like the next step for my career. I love strategy and getting creative about kind of large amorphous concepts,
Mhm.
and I get to do that a lot more now with this. So
Very cool. So tell us, what type of clients are you working with now? Like, who's your ideal client? If I'm listening to this, if I need to give you a call or reach out, who's that ideal client? Who do you love to work with?
I love working with custom home builders. I feel like the home buying process is unique. It's one of the biggest items that you'll ever buy in your life.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to think about that because it changes the marketing funnel and how you approach marketing drastically. So I really like being able to focus on that trust and long nurturing sequences.
Mhm.
So primarily home builders, and I love custom home builders. I love working with that demographic and really understanding them.
We've certainly seen this theme of personalization, customization pop up more and more. I think it's becoming more and more popular with home buyers and just with consumers in general. They expect that personal touch, whether you're buying, a small item or you're buying something bigger like a custom home. So, how do you see this trend playing out specifically in home building industry?
Yeah, personalization. So kind of on a macro level, I feel like the future is custom, and I love thinking about that saying.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's this trend where first things are only custom, and then they're commoditized, and then they're custom again. Like if you think about cars, the first cars that were built were only custom, like hand built cars. And
Hmm.
then you had the Model T. So you had one option, everybody had one option. And now you can buy all sorts of different cars. And I feel like that's an interesting macro thing to look at because it's basically just like technological progress and societal progress gives you more customization. And that trickle down, like you can think about that as far as homes, but you can also think about that in the buying process too. Everything is becoming more custom in all buying processes. And that's largely because of technological innovation. Like we have better ways to use data. And now we can use that data with AI and we can personalize the messages so we can write to people much better. And also, I was talking with your CEO. He was talking about the Amazon user experience, how when you go on there, it's like you see the products that you want to see, you see the things that you shop for. And the home buying experience is going to be increasingly like that and less like shopping for just a business.
It sounds like you're passionate about the technology, and clearly AI is going to be an undeniable force when it comes to technology over the next few years. So what do you
Mm-hmm.
see as far as marketing trends incorporating AI and technology into the sales funnels? Like, how can home builders get on board with this?
It's touching everything, right? Like it's going to be touching our manufacturing, and it's going to be touching how we search for things. Our search engine optimization is changing, and then it's touching the user experience. So I would say for builders to get on board, probably the first step is just to be a user, be a consumer. I think I heard this from Gary Vee first, but he was just talking about how he just, as like to develop his content plan, he just goes and studies that that platform that he wants to get on, and he just goes and consumes it. So when you're going on Google, you just look at what's being generated by AI. Are you ever clicking those things to the side, the sources? Are you reading what's generated by AI? And maybe use ChatGPT search, use Perplexity, another search engine. Just use the tools,
Mhm.
and also like look what's out there. Look into Anugo and similar products that are starting to talk about AI and incorporate AI.
Well, thanks for the plug there. Certainly appreciate it. So traditionally in the marketing world, we have kind of this idea of outbound marketing versus inbound marketing. So talk to me about what you believe is the right balance between the two, and how can a home builder incorporate both into their marketing strategy?
Home builders have to build a lot of trust with their people. So it's hard to interrupt people, right? It's hard to use interruptive marketing because you want to build that trust. Even if you're talking about commercial construction and reaching out to property managers, there's only a handful of property managers, so you have to build trust with them. So outbound is hard, but one thing that I would say it's is changing and is progressing. I think about like three categories. So you have one to one, kind of outbound, and then one to many, which would be like you post a blog and people read it. Then you have
Mhm.
many to many, which would be you have 100 agents on your behalf send individualized messages, which could be people or machines, right?
Mhm.
So I would say they're kind of melding together because now if you have 500 people on your subscriber list, say, that have been on your website, you can interact and send a personalized email to them saying, "Hey, I saw you interacted with my website, and here's some personalized recommendations from the pages that you clicked on and some information that I have about you." And you can do that on a one-to-one feeling basis for your entire subscriber list. I heard that Anugo has this thing where you can go on and see how people are building their homes. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. So all of our interactive design tools. So for example, we have an exterior design tool or interior design tool where essentially somebody who's looking to customize their home, they can see what that house is going to look like with their finishes. So as they're playing with those finishes, what happens on the back end is our Anugo Insights captures every single click. So essentially, when they're saving their favorite designs and say they had 3 different floor plans saved in 2 different communities, and these are the options they selected, and these are the colors they selected. So the sales representative, on the other hand, can see everything that they've done and then where they end up. So it's a really interesting customer journey to see kind of progression of where people start, how many sessions, how much time they're spending on.
Yeah,
And it's not just like Google Analytics, where it essentially just gives you footsteps. You can identify who those people are. You can see maybe, okay, they spent 3 minutes on this page or that page. Where with the
yeah,
Nugo Insights, you can see fingerprints, you can see specifically what they did, what they selected. So it makes a much better conversations. Obviously, as a salesperson, if you know
hmm,
that this customer that you're working with has plan B is their favorite with those colors and the options, your follow-up, your outreach, and just the conversion time frame is going to be much quicker and a much different experience versus you going in completely blind, and then customer also feels like you're the gatekeeper of information versus they
Yeah.
actually have all the information at their fingertips.
Yeah, and they can play with it. So you have all that data of how they've interacted with your product. So
Mhm.
you can kind of multiply your salespeople eventually, and you can say that personalized message that one salesperson is sending after they've kind of gone through what they've talked about or what they've done on the website. You can send out like 500 of those messages with AI eventually once we kind of go through how to use that data and massage through that.
Yes, that is one thing that we're super excited about at Inugo because we're definitely on board with personalization trend. We've been talking about it for so long, and now that I think the world is kind of like ready for it. And obviously, personalization trend would be very tricky if you had to do it as a sales rep, right? Like you said, if you
Yeah.
have 500 customers, it's very difficult or impossible to customize 500 messages and you figure how many messages are going out. You just wouldn't be able to possibly humanly accomplish that. But with AI, it can customize every single message based on specifically what your customers liked or disliked, so that the information that it's sending is relevant, timely, and so your customers can take action at the right time. It's all about
Hmm.
being at the right time, at the right place. And so
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. It's like it's taking these like extremely unscalable tasks and making them scalable.
Yes. Do you feel like most home builders are kind of scared of AI right now, of this transition from the sales reps to AI? And I don't want to say transition from sales reps to AI because there's definitely a role for sales representative, but I think that role is going to be changing. So, what are your thoughts on that evolution of the sales rep? Or even a marketing rep too, because again, as AI
Yeah.
takes over, like what's the role of the marketing and salesperson?
Hmm. Do you listen to Marketing Against the Grain? It's a podcast by HubSpot CEO and another guy, but it's a great marketing podcast to stay
No, I'm
on top
writing
of.
that down though. Marketing against the grain. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the HubSpot CEO was talking about how he thinks that marketing and sales are going to be kind of melded together over time, and
Yes.
even that position can be melded together. And you think
Mhm.
about the emerging trend of a client experience manager, or a client
Mhm.
experience person, kind of managing every touch point along the funnel. And yeah, I was thinking about this recently, and it's all communication, it's all just taking information from your person and like communicating with them about what they want to be talked to about. So
Mhm.
yeah, I see that kind of all melding together, and sales reps, marketing people being able to just leverage their time and abilities a lot more. And it does sound scary because that's the positive way of saying it. And there's also a negative way of saying it, like replacing jobs. But for marketing and sales reps, uh, just people with AI are going to replace people without AI. It's not AI is going to replace people.
I agree with you 100% for sure. We do see that trend merging of sales and marketing people. Even if you look at influencers, right? How you're essentially the brand and you are selling direct to consumers. So you're the marketing and you're the sales. So
Yeah.
that definitely is the trend that we're going to. And so I think every single sales rep out there should be a brand. They should represent their own brand. For example, I have a good friend of mine, Ryan DeLeon, who works for a home builder, and he's worked for several different home builders throughout his career. But one thing, he's always showing up on social media and he's constantly talking about home
Hmm.
building, his community. And I can expect to
Yep.
see funny content about home building. I can expect to see educational content about home building, but it's always going to be related to home building no matter what. So he's built that personal brand using Instagram Reels and he's consistent with it. And so he
Yeah.
is growing his audience, he's growing his personal presence, his personal brand, and he's able to take that brand with him no matter which builder he goes to, because now he has his own following and people know to tune in because Ryan sells in Tennessee. And so if you're looking for new construction in that area, Ryan's going to be your go-to person. So that
Hmm.
is something that I encourage every single person to do. Personal brand is something that I'm so passionate about. No
Yeah.
matter what your role is, I think you should be building your own personal brand because it is something that you get to take with you. It's not, oh, my employer, I work for this and that. It is something
Yep.
that carries on with you, and it gives you a lot more leverage, and it gives you a lot more marketability, a lot more power, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you're walking the walk too,
Well,
right?
thank you. I appreciate that for
Podcast.
sure.
Perfect
Hopefully,
example.
right? Preaching to the choir. You're in North Carolina, in Asheville. Recently had some horrific events happening with the weather there. And
Hmm.
now LA, what's happening there with the fires. I know you've learned some lessons from the aftermath of Hurricane Helen about PR specifically and messaging. So, what is your approach to crisis communications, specifically in home building industry? What can builders learn from you? Fires or water doesn't discriminate, right? It's taken out old new
Yeah.
houses under construction. So I can only imagine what some home builders are experiencing trying to build that house and then suddenly it's gone.
Yeah. Going through Helene was intense. It was like nothing else. They said it was 1,000-year flood in the region. Um, and the wildfires, that's awful. I had a friend whose home burnt down, actually. Um, so yeah, I think my biggest lesson and my biggest takeaway from that was really simple, and it's just that words matter. My partner actually, she was gonna get a tattoo when she was like 15. She was gonna get "Words Matter" on her arm, and we make fun of her because that's such a dumb sounding tattoo. But it's true. Words matter, and I guess that my biggest lesson was that because a lot of marketing professionals will say copywriting is the one of the most important skills in marketing, and it's one of the first people that you hire because if you can write well, you can think well, you can organize your thoughts, you can convince someone to do something on a landing page, you can write good ads. Writing is really important, and I've always known that, but after Helene, there were times where I was writing one sentence, just one sentence I could have written the wrong thing and it could have canceled a company, or I could have wrote the correct thing and it would have helped my community feel supported and seen. I was working with this nonprofit and I did so little work. This is the highest leverage thing I've ever done. And I did so little work just helping them on their website and their messaging and their PR. And the next week, they got featured on Good Morning America, which is
Wow.
was crazy. And now they're just like skyrocketing. They got so many donations from that. So just how they talked about their crisis management allowed them to get the lion's share of donations coming into this region, as far as I know,
Yeah.
which is crazy. It's just,
That's incredible. That's
yeah,
incredible. I agree with you. What you say and how you say it. I do wholeheartedly believe that our words have such power. You can move mountains. We all know those great
yeah.
orators throughout our history, good or bad, that were able to move people to take action just with their words alone.
Books are like one of the oldest forms of communication and they're still popular to consume and they're banned and they're politically charged. It's powerful and it's a simple concept that's easy to forget, easy to take for granted.
What advice do you have for home builders who are looking to step up their messaging? Do you recommend that they work with somebody like yourself, or do you think that AI tools are sufficient enough if you feed them the right copy? Are we at the level where it can produce a good enough copy now?
I think copywriting is starting to be really undervalued because of AI. ChatGPT and other AI can help you so much and it can help you get the volume of content out.
Mhm.
But if you don't know what you're trying to say beforehand, if you don't have that good understanding of the concept on your own terms, then you're going to end up creating a lot of trash and a lot of fluff. So I use AI all the time, like nonstop, but I also edit it. I also prompt it correctly.
Mhm.
So I would just say, and as we progress, it's going to be more and more about how you think and how you structure your thoughts, and leading someone through that structured thought process is something that AI is going to have a hard time doing, at least for another year. We'll see how quickly it progresses.
It's crazy how quickly things are moving. It
Yeah.
is really mind-blowing. I've heard somebody say that the quality of your life depends on the quality of questions you can ask. And I think that
Yes.
is the probably never been more true than it is now with AI, because
Mm-hmm.
you're 100% on the spot, right? Anybody can produce junk from AI, a lot of it, but it's your ability to prompt it in a way that it can give you information not only that is relevant to your company or what you're trying to say, but how you're saying it. So I'm a big fan
Mm-hmm.
of giving
Yes.
it my previous speeches or my previous emails and feeding it so that it can write really in my style. So that's really important, right? You don't want to sound very generic like everybody else's. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to prompt AI. So I definitely recommend you
Yep.
guys spend some time studying that. There's a great amount of articles. If you just search the internet for prompting AI, it's going to give you a ton of information if you want to start studying that. But one of the cool things you can also do is just ask AI to ask you what other information would you want to know about this
Mhm.
topic before we proceed, and it will ask you. So it's again, it's just thinking outside the box, and how can you give it the information so that it can position in the best possible way.
Yeah. Yeah. Play with it. One of the first documents that I have clients create is context and brand voice. So if you have well written and succinctly put brand voice and kind of your business goals, it helps you use AI so much more. Like you can
I
put in
100%.
that brand voice and a little bit about your company. So easy to write blog posts.
I agree with you. And the good thing about AI is that it should really help with turnover of people. We're not immune in this industry to turnover. So if you have those brand documents and you have the voice, you can transfer that much easier from one person to the next and still sound uniform now that
Hmm.
this person's gone and now everything's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Documentation is so helpful, and it's becoming even more important with AI.
For sure. So, speaking of AI, in the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned kind of a shift with SEO, how it used to be so easy to do SEO, especially, for home building back in the day. And now the landscape's really changed, especially with so many people using AI for searches. I personally go to AI 99% of the time when I'm looking for information, and I very rarely go to Google anymore. Right now I'll probably go to Google if I'm looking for like cat food or something, or like yesterday I was looking for a probiotic for my cat. I just got a new cat, so
Okay.
so it gives you kind of like a shopping comparisons. But AI is also starting to get there, especially with home building. You can now search for in your area who's the home builder, what home building companies are in my area. And it starts to show it, including a map, which is really interesting
Hmm.
where it's going. So, what should home builders really be doing right now to prepare for these changes as we shift from SEO to what we call more AIO or AI optimization?
Yeah. I would say I think there's a lot of great recommendations that your SEO company or an SEO professional can give home builders, including more semantic search. But I would focus on diversification. That's one thing that I think a lot of people won't be recommending is diversification. Search engine optimization has been one of the best marketing channels of all time for many years now. And it might continue to be that way, but it might not. And if search engine optimization is a huge strategy of yours, instead of continuing to invest the same amount, I would diversify into other channels and look at that. Because if you think about basically all software channels have wanted to retain people. So Facebook wants to retain people. Instagram wants to retain people. They want to keep people on platform. But
Mhm.
Google, their business monetizes by sending people off of their platform.
Mhm.
And they incentivize people to create content for them by sending people off of their platform, right? So if you write an article for us, we'll send traffic to your website. If you pay us for ads, we'll send people to your website. But now they don't need people to write articles for them because they can generate it. It's just generative right there. And eventually you'll be able to just shop and stay on Google. So there's going to be a lot less reasons, fewer reasons for Google to send people off platform. And
Mhm.
for SEO strategies, that's a huge red flag and it's a huge unknown. So that's
Mhm.
why I would highly recommend diversifying and just kind of hedging your bets a little bit on SEO.
For sure. And we do know that traffic for your website is probably going to be dropping as a result of these changes to SEO. I think we've
Mm-hmm.
already seen kind of that trend starting to happen. And as Google is losing its dominance in the search engine world, it's going to be interesting to continue to watch what happens. We're kind of like in an uncharted territory right now. No,
Yep.
nobody's done this before, so we're all
Yeah.
learning as we go.
Yeah.
Uh,
So how do you confront unknowns, diversification? Also,
yes.
what search platform are you using? Is it Perplexity or is it ChatGPT search?
So Claude is my favorite. That's my go-to. I call him my boyfriend because he
Nice.
knows a lot about me. He remembers stuff about me. He pays attention, and he's always there for me. So
Awesome.
so far I found Claude to be the most useful for what I do. Again, my role is to create a lot of marketing content for Inugo.
Mm-hmm.
So I've played with just about every single engine out there, and when new things come out, I always give it a shot.
Yeah,
But
me
I
too.
found that Claude has been kind of the most successful one for me as far as it really tends to remember a lot of information. I don't have to repeat myself over and over again. So when it comes to prompting,
Yeah.
I don't have to give it the world. I can just give it a small snippet for that particular task because it already knows a lot
Yes.
about me. So that's
Yeah.
the one I'm kind of stuck
Context.
with.
Context is so valuable now.
Yes. How about you? What's your go-to?
ChatGPT has been my kind of
ChatGPT.
favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
everybody
know.
has their favorite. So that's
Yeah.
one thing I would recommend you guys do is if you haven't already started playing with all these tools, just start. Yeah,
Mhm.
pull up all the different tools and just try prompting it. Give it the same prompt and see what returns, and then you can figure out which one you prefer and stick with
Mhm.
it and keep using
The
it, because one thing for sure is every single day it seems like there's another AI platform or another AI feature that's coming out. Even with Claude, they've come such a long way from when I first started using them to now. The quality of the information that it returns, it just makes it much easier to do my job. And I can't
Mhm.
imagine not using it on a daily basis to do my job. I would feel handicapped kind of now. So
Yeah. One tool that's really nice is Merlin. I found this tool and it's one premium subscription of like 30 something dollars a month. And it
mhm.
gives you premium versions of Claude, ChatGPT, all these other ones. So it's really cool to kind of go around and see what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not Merlin.ai, which is actually
Right.
a construction company.
Yes. Construction. No, I've had Sneha, who is the CEO and founder, on my podcast
Oh, cool.
twice. So yeah, so they're
That's
they're
such a cool
definitely,
company.
it is. Yes, they're definitely changing the way we utilize AI when it comes to actual construction. So I know
Mhm.
right now they're heavily focused on manufactured homes, but they're moving more and more into customization, etc. So, but
Such a
yeah,
cool company.
yeah, it's really cool to see their
Yeah.
progress.
Anugo and them are two of my top favorite companies to watch right now.
Well,
And
thank you. I appreciate it. We definitely have a lot of things in sync. I think the way we see future is very similar.
mhm.
And so we're kind of working towards similar future. And I think in the future, hopefully we will work together even more closely for
Oh, cool.
homeowners. So we'll see. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
So, Mitchell, as we wrap things up today, is there anything that I didn't ask you or a topic that we haven't touched on that you think is important for our listeners to understand?
So I guess we talked a whole bunch about AI and what's coming up and kind of the future and looking ahead. That's something I love about marketing in general is it's kind of like investing where you're kind of taking bets on what you think the next trend is going to be and what you think the next kind of progress is going to go towards. Except instead of investing money, you're investing like business resources. So it's very valuable to understand where things are headed. And I guess to be able to do that, we're kind of entering a period of a lot of technological progress.
Mhm.
So document to be ready for agents and for consultants to implement agents into your company. So
Mhm.
documentation this year is going to be very valuable. It's going to put you ahead of competitors and maybe lower your skepticism on young companies because if you think about the advertising opportunity in early Facebook, you could get ridiculous results for like $50 a month
Right.
for Facebook ads.
Well,
And
I
now
love those
they're
days.
yeah, and now they're valued according to the marketplace.
Right.
But there's going to be some companies that don't have enough trust in the marketplace that need to give you as the consumer a whole bunch of value because they're providing insane amounts of leverage with rapidly progressing technology. So I would lower your skepticism a little bit for the next few years because we'll probably see some huge disruptive companies come in.
For sure. And Mitchell, just to clarify for our listeners, what you were talking about documentation and going to agents. So agentic AI is what's coming up next, right? Right now, we're using AI to kind of generate all this information we talked about, marketing materials, whatever else. It's able to generate a lot of that. Generative AI is what they call it. And then
Mm-hmm.
agentic is what we're going towards, which is it's going to start acting as an independent agent. So with documentation, for example, with Claude, right? Claude already knows so much about me. So in the future, when it's agentic, I'll be able to say, hey, Claude, you know what? I'm looking for a new probiotic for my cat, right? And he's having some issues. Go ahead and research for me and find that for me. And he's going to be able to go and find all that information, narrow it down for me, present that information for me. So it's essentially starting to do tasks on your behalf, or you'll be able to automate a lot of the tasks, right? Like, oh, I need to create this and then post it to here and then do this. So essentially it's going to act as an independent agent. But in order for it to do that, you're right, you need documentation, you need data. So that's where it's going to be the haves versus have nots when it comes to data. So be mindful about what kind of marketing you're using. Are you generating that data from your customers? And what are you doing with that data? So it's very
Mm-hmm.
important. Great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And your
Okay.
SOPs, write them down.
Yes. So, Mitchell, if somebody wants to learn more about your company and work with you, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Is there a website? Do you hang out on social? So tell us all about it.
Yep. So I'm posting on LinkedIn every now and then. So just you can just Google me, Mitchell Metz, Metz, not like the baseball team. Or it's baseball, right?
Matt, you're
Yeah,
asking the
but
wrong person here.
just Google me, mitchellmetz.com, and reach out on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on today's show. I really enjoyed our conversation. It's so refreshing to see new consultants coming into the marketing world who are all gung-ho on technology and AI. I think a lot of the consultants in our world are kind of stuck in the back. They rely on old techniques because a lot of their businesses are tied to that. It's how they make money. So it's a lot more difficult for them to change and adapt to these new technologies. So it's great to see that you have gotten on board with it and wish you all the best. And hopefully we'll get to connect in the future and get an update to our listeners how things are
Yeah.
going and what's new in the marketing world.
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.